My name is Violet Sterling, I'm 34 years old, and 4 years ago, my mother decided I was no longer worth being called her daughter because of my paycheck. Before I tell you how I ended up standing on a stage with the governor of Virginia while my family watched in horror, I need to know something. Where are you watching from right now? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one, and it helps me feel a little less alone in sharing this. It started on a Saturday night. The Saturday before Mother's Day, 2020. I remember the time exactly, 11:47 p.m. I was in my studio apartment. It was small, sure. My kitchen table doubled as my desk, and my bed was 3 steps away from my refrigerator. But it was mine. I was grading 4th grade history papers, a cup of lukewarm tea sitting next to a stack of red pens. My phone buzzed against the hard wood of the table. It was a notification from WhatsApp. The Sterling family group. My stomach did that familiar little flip it always did when my family messaged. You know that feeling? That instant tightness in your chest because you don't know if you're about to get an invitation or an insult. With the Sterlings, it was usually the latter. I unlocked the screen. The message was from my mother, Margaret. I read it once. Then I wiped my glasses, thinking maybe the late hour was playing tricks on my eyes. I read it again. Reminder, Mother's Day dinner at the Jefferson, 7 p.m. sharp. All my children will be there. All my successful children. And then, a second message right below it. Violet chose to be a lowly teacher. I no longer see her as my daughter. Please don't mention her name tomorrow. We will enjoy a proper family evening without the embarrassment. I stared at the glowing screen. The words didn't look real. They looked like black pixels on a white background, harmless little shapes. But they hit me with the force of a physical blow. I stopped breathing for a few seconds. I waited. I sat there staring at the 3 little dots that meant someone was typing, praying that my sister, Victoria, or my brother, Bradley, would say something. Maybe a "Mom, that's too far." Maybe a "Are you crazy?" The dots appeared. Then disappeared. Then, a notification from Victoria. A heart emoji. Just a red heart. That was her response to our mother erasing me. Then Bradley. 2 words, understood, Mom. I dropped the phone on the papers I was grading. It slid across the table and hit my tea mug with a dull clink. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. You'd think I would be sobbing, right? But when the pain is that deep, when it cuts right through the bone, you don't cry immediately. You go numb. It felt like all the air had been sucked out of my tiny apartment. My mother, a woman who prided herself on her pearls and her perfectly manicured garden, had just disowned me in a group chat because I wasn't a doctor or a lawyer. Because my salary didn't justify a seat at her table. I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the street lights of my quiet neighborhood were humming. I looked at my reflection in the dark glass. I looked tired. I looked like a teacher who had spent all week trying to help kids learn how to read. Kids who didn't have half the advantages I grew up with. Lowly. That was the word she used. Lowly. My hand reached for the phone again. My thumb hovered over the call button. I could call her. I could demand to know why. I could scream at Victoria for that heart emoji. I could beg. That's what I had done my whole life, honestly. Begged for scraps of their approval. But then I looked at the stack of graded papers. One of my students, a boy named Leo, had written a note at the bottom of his essay, "Thank you, Ms. Sterling, for helping me. You are the best." I looked back at the WhatsApp message. I no longer see her as my daughter. Something snapped inside me. Not a violent snap but a quiet one. Like a tether finally being cut. I took a screenshot. Then I went to my contacts. I clicked on Mother. Block. I clicked on Victoria. Block. I clicked on Bradley. Block. I even blocked my father, Richard, though he hadn't said a word. His silence was just as loud as their cruelty. I didn't send a goodbye message. I didn't leave the group. I just deleted the app entirely. I spent the next hour packing a bag. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't sit in that apartment on Mother's Day, knowing they were eating dinner at the Jefferson, clinking crystal glasses and celebrating their success, while pretending I never existed. I drove 2 hours west into the mountains and rented a cheap cabin for the weekend. I turned my phone off. I sat on the porch and watched the sun come up over the Blue Ridge Mountains. I didn't know it then, but that silence, that refusal to fight back, was the most powerful weapon I had. They wanted a reaction. They wanted drama. They wanted me to come crawling back so they could feel superior. By giving them nothing, I took everything. But here's the thing about silence, it allows you to hear things you've been ignoring for a long time. As I sat on that porch, the memories started flooding back. I realized this wasn't just about one text message. This had been building for 30 years. The text was just the final nail in the coffin. And I realized something else. If I was going to survive this, if I was going to build a life that actually meant something, I couldn't just be the lowly teacher they despised. I had to become someone they couldn't ignore. I didn't know that for years later, a governor would be shaking my hand. I didn't know my mother would try to crawl back. And I certainly didn't know that the screenshot I took that night, the one I saved in a hidden folder, would become the most important document of my life. But before we get to the governor, and the cameras, and the look of absolute terror on my sister's face, you have to understand where I came from. You have to understand why a mother would throw her own child away like garbage. And to understand that, we have to go back to the dinner table where I learned that love costs money. The Sterling family home in Richmond was beautiful. That's what everyone said. It was a sprawling brick colonial with white pillars, a manicured lawn that looked like a golf course, and a driveway filled with German engineering. Growing up, our driveway looked like a luxury car dealership. My father drove a Mercedes S-Class. My mother had her Range Rover. When my siblings got older, the collection grew. Victoria, the golden child, the plastic surgeon who could fix a nose but couldn't fix her own heart, drove a Ferrari. Bright red. She parked it right in the center of the driveway every time she visited, making sure the prancing horse logo was the first thing you saw. Bradley, the corporate lawyer who made partner at 30, drove a Porsche Cayenne. He liked to rev the engine when he arrived, a sonic announcement that money had entered the building. And then there was me. Violet. I drove a 2008 Honda Civic. It was silver, reliable, and had a dent in the rear bumper from a parking lot mishap. When I came over for family dinners, my mother would actually call me beforehand. Violet, she'd say, her voice dripping with that fake sweetness, do be a dear and park on the street, around the corner. We're having guests and the driveway is full. It wasn't full. There was always room. But my Honda didn't fit the aesthetic. It ruined the brand. I grew up thinking this was normal. I thought every family had a hierarchy based on tax brackets. The separation wasn't just in the driveway. It was at the dinner table. Let me tell you about Thanksgiving, 2019. Just 6 months before the message. I had spent 3 days making a pumpkin cheesecake from scratch. It was a recipe I'd been perfecting. I was proud of it. I walked into the house, carrying the cake box, and the smell of expensive perfume hit me instantly. Victoria was in the hallway, wearing a dress that probably cost more than my rent. "Oh, Violet," she said, looking at the box. "You brought food. How rustic." "It's cheesecake," I said, trying to keep my smile. "Homemade." She patted my arm. "That's sweet. Maybe leave it in the kitchen." We ordered desserts from the French bakery downtown. Real pastries. I swallowed the lump in my throat and took the cake to the kitchen. I placed it on the counter, next to boxes of macarons and tarts that looked like jewels. My cake looked homemade. Brown. Imperfect. When it was time for dinner, we moved to the dining room. The table was set with the good china, the silver that had been in the family for generations. There were name cards at every seat. Father at the head. Mother opposite him. Victoria and her husband on one side. Bradley and his wife on the other. I walked around the table, looking for my name. "Oh, honey," my mother called out from the head of the table. She was adjusting her pearl necklace, not looking at me. We ran out of space at the main table. The centerpiece is just so large this year. I looked at the corner of the room. There, set up against the wall, was a folding card table. The kind you use for puzzles. There was no tablecloth. Just a placemat and a set of everyday silverware. "It's cozy," Bradley chuckled, pouring himself a glass of wine. "VIP section, right, Vi?" I was 30 years old. I was a grown woman with a college degree and a full-time job. And I was being sat at a kid's table in the corner, while my family laughed and passed the gravy boat around the mahogany table. I sat down. I ate my turkey in silence. I could hear their conversation. They were talking about summer houses in the Hamptons, about stock portfolios, about inheritance tax loopholes. "It's robbery," my father was saying, cutting his meat aggressively. "You work hard, you build an empire, and the government wants to take 40%. We need to move more of the assets into the trust." "I can handle that, Dad," Bradley said, his voice smooth. "I'll have the firm draw up the papers next week." "Good man," Father said. Then the conversation turned to me. They didn't even lower their voices. "So, Violet," Victoria called out, turning in her chair to look at me in the corner. "Still doing the teaching thing?" "Yes," I said. "I love my class this year. I have a student who, but the salary," my mother interrupted, sipping her wine. "It's just, isn't it embarrassing? I told Mrs. Higgins at the club that you were consulting." "It sounds better." "It's a government salary, Mom," I said, my grip tightening on my fork. "It's honest work." "It's poverty," Bradley laughed. "Let's call it what it is. If you ever need a loan, Vi, just ask. Though I don't know how you'd pay it back." They all laughed. My father, my mother, my siblings. A chorus of wealthy, successful laughter ringing in the dining room, while I sat at a folding table staring at my cold potatoes. That was the moment I realized they didn't just look down on me. They were ashamed of me. But here's the secret they always conveniently forgot: I could have been at that table. When I was 18, I was accepted into the pre-med program at UVA. Full scholarship. I had the grades. I had the sterling potential. My mother had already ordered the "proud parent of a doctor" bumper sticker. But the summer before college, I volunteered at a literacy camp for underprivileged kids. There was a boy there, Marcus Jr., no relation to my husband, just a coincidence of names. He was 8 years old and couldn't read the word cat. He was angry, violent, and written off by everyone. I spent 3 months with him. Every single day. And on the last day of camp, he sat in my lap and read Green Eggs and Ham cover to cover. When he finished, he looked up at me with tears in his eyes and said, "I'm not stupid, Miss Violet. I can do it." That feeling of unlocking a human being's potential. It was worth more than every Ferrari in Victoria's driveway. I went home and told my parents I wasn't going to be a doctor. I was going to be a teacher. My father looked at me over his newspaper and said, "Then you are on your own. I won't pay for a degree that leads to mediocrity." My mother just cried. Not for me, but for her bumper sticker. So I worked 3 jobs. I took out loans. I drove a beat-up Honda. I became a teacher. And for 12 years, I paid the price for that choice every time I walked into my parents' house. But sitting at that folding table on Thanksgiving, watching them discuss inheritance and trusts, I realized something. They were rich, yes. But they were miserable. Victoria's husband was cheating on her, everyone knew it except maybe her. Bradley drank too much scotch to hide his stress. My mother was terrified of aging. I went home that night and ate my pumpkin cheesecake alone. It was delicious. Fast forward 6 months to the text message. The lowly teacher text. When I blocked them that night in May 2020, it wasn't just because of the text. It was because I was finally done sitting at the folding table. I was done parking around the corner. I spent that weekend in the cabin, and on Sunday evening, I turned my phone back on. I had one voicemail. It wasn't from my family. It was from Rachel, my cousin. Rachel was the only one in the family who didn't treat me like a contagion. She was Aunt Patricia's daughter, 24 years old, just starting her marketing career. Violet, her voice was shaking on the voicemail. I saw what Aunt Margaret wrote in the group before you disappeared. I took screenshots of everything. I don't know where you are, but please call me. They're awful. You don't deserve this. I called her back. We talked for 2 hours. She told me that the Mother's Day dinner had happened. They had gone to the Jefferson. Mom had posted a photo on Facebook, my beautiful family. So blessed. She cropped you out of the narrative completely, Rachel whispered. It's like you died. Good, I said, looking out at the dark mountains. Let me be dead to them. It's better this way. But nature abhors a vacuum. When you clear out the toxic sludge from your life, you make room for something else to grow. I didn't know it yet, but my life was about to fill up. And it started with a field trip to a pumpkin patch, and a man with dirt under his fingernails who would teach me what a real man looks like. October 2020. 5 months after the excommunication. I was standing in a field of mud, surrounded by 25 screaming 4th graders. We were at Webb Family Organics, a local farm about 40 miles from the city. It was our annual farm-to-table field trip. I was wearing rubber boots and a windbreaker, trying to stop a boy named Tyler from throwing a rotten gourd at a goat. Ms. Sterling, a little voice chirped. My daddy says you have pretty eyes. I froze. I looked down. It was Lily. Lily was a new student in my class. She was 5 years old, technically a kindergartner, but our school did mixed reading groups and she was advanced. She was a tiny thing with wild curly hair and a missing front tooth. Her mother had passed away from cancer 2 years prior. I knew this from her file. I had a soft spot for Lily. She brought me drawings of stick figures holding hands every morning. Oh really? I laughed, wiping mud off my cheek. And where is your daddy? Over there by the tractor, she pointed. I looked up. Standing by a massive green John Deere tractor was a man. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a flannel shirt that had seen better days, and a pair of worn work gloves. He had dark hair and a beard that was neatly trimmed. He was watching us, a small smile playing on his lips. He walked over. He didn't walk like the men I grew up with, that hurried, important, time is money walk. He walked with a steady, grounded rhythm. I apologize for my daughter, he said, his voice deep and warm like molasses. He took off his glove to shake my hand. She lacks a filter. I'm Marcus. Marcus Webb. I took his hand. It was rough, calloused, and warm. I'm Violet. And Lily is wonderful. You don't need to apologize for compliments. He laughed. Well, she's not wrong. You do have kind eyes. I felt a blush creep up my neck. This was not the smooth, practiced charm of the lawyers and doctors my mother tried to set me up with. This was honest. We started talking. The kids ran off to pick pumpkins and Marcus walked with me. He talked about the soil, about the struggle of keeping an organic farm profitable, about the inheritance he wanted to leave Lily, not money, but land that was healthy. It's hard work, he said, looking over his fields. But it's real. At the end of the day, you can see what you did. You grew something. I feel the same way about teaching, I said. He stopped and looked at me. That's a rare thing to hear. Most people just ask me why I don't sell the land to developers and retire. Most people don't understand the value of growing things, I said. That was the beginning. Coffee dates turned into dinner dates. Dinner dates turned into weekends at the farm. For the first time in my life, I was with a man who didn't care about my salary or my car. He cared about how I treated his daughter. He cared about my thoughts. When I told him about my family, about the text message, about being lowly, he didn't get angry. He got quiet. That's not family, Violet, he told me one night, sitting on his porch swing. Family isn't blood. That's just biology. Family is who shows up when the barn burns down. Family is who holds the ladder for you. 2 years later, in 2022, we got married. It wasn't at the Jefferson. It wasn't at a country club. We got married right there under the giant oak tree on the farm. I wore a simple white dress I bought online. Lily was our flower girl. Rachel was my maid of honor. There were no Ferraris in the driveway. Just pickup trucks and my Honda. We ate barbecue and danced on the grass. I didn't invite my parents. I didn't invite my siblings. But the ghost of the Sterling family was still haunting me. About a month after the wedding, Rachel called me. She was whispering, like she was hiding in a closet. Violet, you need to know what Aunt Margaret is saying, she said. I don't care, Rachel, I said, washing dishes in my farmhouse kitchen. I'm happy. She's telling people you're in Africa, Rachel said. I dropped the sponge. What? Africa. Kenya, specifically. She told the ladies at the club that you joined the Peace Corps or some prestigious NGO. She says you're on a noble mission to save starving children. She says that's why you haven't been home in 2 years. I started laughing. It was a bitter, sharp laugh. She invented a new life for me. She couldn't admit you cut her off, Rachel explained. It would ruin her image. So she turned you into a saint. A distant, unreachable saint. Everyone thinks you're a hero, Violet. They ask about you all the time. That is psychotic, I said. It gets worse, Rachel continued. She's actually accepting donations for your school in Kenya. She collects checks at the Christmas gala and says she'll wire them to you. She's committing fraud. My jaw dropped. No, she donates the money to a generic charity so she doesn't get sued, but she takes the credit for it being your project. It's her way of controlling the narrative. I hung up the phone and looked at Marcus. He was sitting at the table, going over the farm accounts. My mother tells people I'm Mother Teresa in Kenya, I told him. Marcus didn't laugh. He frowned. He opened his laptop. What are you doing? I asked. I'm saving this, he said. Rachel sent you the text messages about this, right? The proof? Yes. Forward them to me. Why? Marcus looked at me, his eyes dark. Because one day, Violet, the lie is going to catch up with them. And when it does, they are going to try to destroy you to save themselves. We need ammunition. I saw a folder on his desktop. It was labeled, Violet, do not delete. What's in there? I asked. Everything, he said. Every screenshot Rachel sent. The Mother's Day text. The Thanksgiving photos where they cropped you out. The emails. Everything. I kissed his forehead. You're paranoid, farmer boy. I'm protective, he corrected. He was right. God, he was so right. Life moved on. I kept teaching, but I started taking night classes for my master's in educational leadership. I wanted to do more. I wanted to change the system. In late 2023, the position for superintendent of Clark County Schools opened up. It was a big job. Huge. Overseeing 12 schools, thousands of students, massive budgets. It was a job usually reserved for people with decades of administrative experience or political connections. I applied on a whim. I went through 3 rounds of brutal interviews. I presented a plan to revitalize the literacy program, the same plan I had used with Marcus Jr. all those years ago. In March 2024, I got the call. Mrs. Webb. The voice on the phone was formal. This is Diana Morrison from the Department of Education. The board has made a decision. I held my breath. Marcus was holding my hand so tight my fingers were turning white. We would like to offer you the position of superintendent. I screamed. I actually screamed. Lily came running in, thinking there was a mouse. We danced around the kitchen. I was the youngest superintendent in the state's history. It was a massive achievement. But success acts like a beacon. It shines a light that reaches even the darkest corners where people are hiding. The announcement was published in the Shenandoah Valley Voice and the Richmond Times-Dispatch. It was a full-page spread with my photo. My real photo. Not me in a safari hat in Kenya. Me in a blazer standing in front of a Virginia school. The headline read, Local teacher Violet Sterling Webb named new superintendent. The lie was over. The storm was about to break. The morning the article came out, my phone, which had been blissfully quiet of family drama for 4 years, started to vibrate. But not from them. From Rachel. It's hitting the fan, she texted. Victoria saw the paper. She just posted in the new family group, the one I'm still in. She's freaking out. Then she sent a screenshot. Victoria, have you seen this? She's here. She's been here the whole time. Mom, what are we going to do? People are going to ask why the African saint is running a school district in Clark County. Mom, don't panic. I'm handling it. Bradley, this looks bad. We need a strategy. If people find out we haven't spoken to her in 4 years, it makes us look dysfunctional. Clients value family stability. Mom, I said I'm handling it. I showed the messages to Marcus. He was drinking coffee, his face unreadable. They're not happy for you, he said flatly. They're worried about being exposed. I know, I said. I don't expect them to be happy. Then, the email came. It popped up on my personal account. Subject, congratulations, darling. Sender, Margaret Sterling. My hand shook as I opened it. Dearest Violet, I just saw the wonderful news. Superintendent. I always knew you were destined for greatness. I must admit, I was a bit hurt that you didn't tell us yourself, but I know how busy you must be. We've missed you so terribly. All that silly misunderstanding years ago, water under the bridge, right? We must celebrate. Lunch this weekend at the club. I want to hear all about your travels, wink, and this new job. Dad is so proud. Love, Mom. I read it out loud. Silly misunderstanding. Water under the bridge. She was rewriting history in real time. She called disowning me a misunderstanding. And the wink about my travels. She was trying to get me to play along with her Africa lie. Don't reply, Marcus said. Add it to the folder. I didn't reply. 2 hours later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered, thinking it was a school board member. Violet. It was Victoria. Her voice sounded breathless, dramatic. Vic? I said, my voice cold. Oh, thank God. Violet, you have to come home. It's Mom. She's not well. I felt a spike of adrenaline. What do you mean? She collapsed this morning. The stress, the heart palpitations. She's been asking for you. She keeps saying your name. Please, Vi. I know we haven't talked, but she's sick. You can't turn your back on a sick mother. For a second, just a split second, I wavered. She was my mother. What if she was dying? What if this was real? I covered the phone. Victoria says Mom is sick. Collapsed. Marcus narrowed his eyes. He pulled out his phone and dialed Rachel. He put it on speaker. Rachel, Marcus said. Where is Aunt Margaret? She's at the salon, Rachel said immediately. She just posted a story on Instagram getting a hydrofacial. Why? I stared at the phone. The lie was so easy for them. It rolled off their tongues like water. Violet. Victoria said on the other end. Are you there? She's really weak. I unmuted myself. Victoria, I said. Rachel says the hydrofacial looks great. Hope the pores are clean. Dead silence. You little, Victoria's tone shifted instantly from concerned sister to high school mean girl. You think you're so smart? You think because you got some government job you're better than us? Goodbye, Victoria, I said. And I hung up. I sank into a kitchen chair. They are never going to stop, are they? No, Marcus said. He walked over and turned his laptop screen toward me. And that's why we have to be ready for next week. What's next week? The Teacher of the Year ceremony. The induction. The governor is going to be there. It's televised, Violet. I know. So. Look at this. Marcus pointed to a screenshot Rachel had just sent. It was from the family group chat again. Mom, okay, plan B, Violet isn't answering. But the ceremony is public. It's at the state capitol. We will just show up. Victoria, brilliant. If we are there smiling and cheering, she can't make a scene. It will prove we are a supportive family. I'll wear the red Valentino. Bradley, I'll clear my schedule. Good PR move. We can get photos with the governor. The Sterling family supports education. I can use that for the firm's charity profile. Mom, exactly. We arrive early, take the front row. We'll join her on stage for the photos. She won't dare kick her own mother off stage on live TV. It would make her look like a monster. I read the messages. My blood turned to ice. They weren't coming to support me. They were coming to hijack my moment. They were going to use my success, the success I built in spite of them, to polish their own tarnished reputations. They wanted the photo op. They wanted to pretend that Dr. Violet was their creation. They're betting on your silence, Marcus said quietly. They're betting that you are too polite, too lowly to cause a scene. I stood up. I walked to the window and looked out at the farm. I saw Lily playing on the swing set Marcus had built. I saw the life we had made. A life built on truth. They're wrong, I said. Marcus looked at me. What are you going to do? Should I hire security to bar them? No, I said. A cold calm settled over me. Let them come. Let them wear their Valentino dresses and their expensive suits. Let them sit in the front row. Violet. I'm going to give a speech, Marcus. And I'm going to thank my family. My real family. And when they try to come on stage. I turned to him and smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Then I'm going to tell the truth. I have the receipts, Marcus. You saved them for a reason. "You're going to read the text?" he asked, his eyes widening. "If they force my hand," I said. "I'm going to burn the house down." The week leading up to the ceremony was a blur. I bought a navy blue dress, elegant, professional, understated. Not red Valentino. I wrote my speech. I rewrote it 10 times. I practiced it in front of the mirror. The night before the ceremony, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. "You don't have to do this," Marcus whispered in the dark. "Yes, I do," I said. For 4 years, I let them think I was weak because I walked away. Tomorrow, I show them that walking away was the strongest thing I ever did. The Virginia state capitol is intimidating. Marble floors, towering columns, statues of dead presidents staring down at you. The air smells like history and floor wax. We arrived an hour early. Me, Marcus, and Lily. Lily was wearing a yellow dress with daisies on it. She held my hand tight. "You look like a boss, Mom," she whispered. "Thanks, baby," I squeezed her hand. We went to the holding room for honorees. Dr. Eleanor Hart, the state education commissioner and my former mentor, was there. She hugged me. "You ready, Superintendent?" she asked. "As I'll ever be," I said. "Listen," she lowered her voice. "I got a call from a woman claiming to be your mother. She wanted reserved seating in the family section. I told her those seats were for your husband and daughter." "What did she say?" "She said, 'I'm Margaret Sterling. I don't need a reservation.'" And hung up. Eleanor rolled her eyes. "She sounds charming." "She's here," I said to Marcus. My heart hammered against my ribs. We walked into the main chamber. It was packed. 500 people. Teachers, principals, politicians. 3 TV cameras were set up in the back, red lights blinking. This was being live-streamed. We took our seats in the front row. And then I felt it. The shift in the air. The smell of Chanel No. 5. I didn't turn around, but I heard the commotion. "Excuse me, we are the family. Move aside." That was Bradley. "Oh, don't be silly, we're sitting right behind her." That was Mom. They swept in like royalty. I could see them in my peripheral vision. Mom in a cream suit with pearls the size of grapes. Victoria in the red Valentino, looking like she was walking a red carpet. Bradley in a charcoal suit, checking his Rolex. They sat directly behind us in the second row. "Violet," Mom hissed. A loud, stage whisper. "Violet, darling." I didn't turn. "She's playing coy," Victoria whispered loudly. "Just wait until the cameras are on." The ceremony began. The governor gave a speech about the importance of education. I zoned out, focusing on my breathing. In. Out. Do not vomit. Then, Dr. Hart took the podium. "And now, for our final honoree. The new superintendent of Clark County, a woman who has revolutionized literacy programs and proven that leadership is about service, not status. Mrs. Violet Sterling Webb." The applause was polite. I stood up. Dr. Hart continued. "Violet didn't get here because of connections. She didn't get here because of a trust fund. She built her career in the trenches, working with our most vulnerable students." I heard a sharp intake of breath from the row behind me. "Please welcome, Violet Webb." I walked up the stairs to the stage. The lights were blinding. I shook the governor's hand. He smiled. "Good to see you, Violet." I stood at the podium. I adjusted the microphone. I looked out at the sea of faces. And I saw them. Right in the center. My mother was beaming, a practiced, plastic smile. She was already waving slightly to the camera. Victoria was fixing her hair. I took a deep breath. "Thank you, Governor." Thank you, Dr. Hart. My voice was steady. Stronger than I expected. When I became a teacher, I was told by some people that I was throwing my life away. That I was choosing a path of mediocrity. I saw Bradley stiffen. But I learned that true success isn't about the car you drive or the club you belong to. It's about the lives you touch. I looked at Marcus and Lily in the front row. Marcus gave me a thumbs up. I want to thank the people who made this possible. My colleagues at Clark County. My mentor, Eleanor. I paused. This was it. And most importantly, I want to thank my family. My mother sat up straighter. She actually preened. She grabbed Victoria's hand, ready to stand up. My husband, Marcus, I said, looking directly at him. Who taught me that love is an action, not a transaction? And my daughter, Lily, who is the light of my life. I stopped. The silence hung in the air for a second. Thank you. I started to step back from the podium. That was the plan. Just silence. Just exclusion. But Margaret Sterling could not handle exclusion. Wait. She stood up. It wasn't a polite stand. It was a demand. She walked out of the row into the aisle and approached the stage. The cameras swiveled toward her. Violet, she called out, her voice echoing in the chamber. She was using her wounded mother voice. Violet, sweetheart, surely you didn't forget your own mother. We're all here to support you. The room went deadly quiet. People were confused. Was this part of the show? She reached the stairs. Come on, darling. Let's get a picture. The whole family. Victoria and Bradley were standing up now, too, looking unsure but following her lead. Dr. Hart stepped forward to intercept her, but I held up a hand. I stepped back to the microphone. Mrs. Sterling, I said. My voice boomed through the speakers. She froze, one foot on the stair. She looked confused by the formal address. I appreciated you coming, I said. But the family portion of my speech is concluded. Violet, don't be ridiculous, she laughed, a nervous, high-pitched sound. I'm your mother. I raised you. I'm so proud of my successful daughter. Successful. I repeated the word. That's interesting. I reached into the pocket of my blazer. I pulled out a piece of paper. It was a printout. A simple, folded piece of paper. Because 4 years ago, I said, my voice dropping an octave, becoming deadly serious. On the night before Mother's Day, you had a different definition of success. Violet, stop, Bradley barked from the floor. Not here. Yes, here, I said. I unfolded the paper. On May 9, 2020, at 8:32 p.m., you sent a message to the family group chat. I'm going to read it, so everyone understands why you aren't on this stage. My mother's face went pale. The plastic smile dissolved into pure fear. I read. All my children are successful except Violet. She chose to be a lowly teacher. Gasps rippled through the room. I heard a, oh my God, from the third row. I continued reading, looking straight at her. I no longer see her as my daughter. Please don't mention her name tomorrow. We will enjoy a proper family evening without the embarrassment. I lowered the paper. You said you no longer saw me as your daughter, I said to the silent room. I simply respected your decision. My mother stood there, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. She looked around for support, but the faces in the crowd weren't looking at her with admiration. They were looking at her with disgust. You called me a lowly teacher, I said. Well, I am a teacher. And I am standing here with the governor. And you? You are uninvited. Security, Dr. Hart said quietly into her headset. 2 large security guards in uniforms stepped forward. Mrs. Sterling, one of them said. Please come with us. You can't do this. Victoria screamed shrilly. Do you know who we are? We know exactly who you are, I said into the mic. You're the people who cared more about a photo op than a family member. The guard took my mother's elbow. She looked shattered. Her reputation, her carefully constructed image, destroyed in 60 seconds on live television. As they were led away, the Sterling family doing the walk of shame, out of the state capitol, someone started clapping. It was an old man in the back. Then another person. Then the governor. Suddenly, the whole room was standing. A standing ovation. Not for the award, but for the truth. I looked at Marcus. He was crying. He blew me a kiss. I had burned the house down. And the fire felt warm. The adrenaline crash didn't hit me until I walked off the stage. My legs felt like jelly. Dr. Hart caught me by the arm. That was unforgettable, she said, her eyes twinkling. I think you just became the most popular superintendent in Virginia. I think I just became an orphan, I said, a hysterical laugh bubbling up. You became free, she corrected. We had to do the official photos. I smiled, shook hands, accepted congratulations. But my mind was racing. I knew they wouldn't just leave. They were Sterling's. They would demand a debriefing. Sure enough, when we walked out into the grand hallway toward the exit, they were waiting. They had been escorted out of the chamber but not the building. They were standing near the elevators, a tight knot of fury and expensive fabric. Violet. It was my father. Richard. He spoke for the first time in years. His face was red. Marcus stepped in front of me immediately, blocking his path. Back up, Richard. Get out of my way, farmhand, my father sneered. I need to speak to my daughter. I'm right here, I said, stepping out from behind Marcus. I held Lily's hand tight. Say what you need to say. You humiliated us, my mother hissed. She was crying, black mascara running down her face. On television. How could you? After everything we gave you. You gave me nothing, I said calmly. You paid for my childhood, sure. You bought me clothes and food. But you never gave me a family. You gave me a performance. We were protecting the family name. Bradley shouted. He looked like he was about to punch a wall. Do you know what this is going to do to the firm? To my clients. Sterling family disowns teacher. It's a PR nightmare. That's all you care about, I shook my head. PR. Even now. You're not asking why I was hurt. You're asking how this affects your stock price. It was out of context. Victoria yelled. That text was just. Mom was stressed. You know how she gets. You blew it out of proportion. I pulled out my phone. I opened the Do Not Delete folder. Context. I swiped to the next image. Here is the email where Mom lies about me being in Africa. Here is the text from yesterday where you, Victoria, ask if you should wear the red Valentino to stage the photo. Here is Bradley calling it a good PR move. I held the phone up to their faces. There is no context where this is love, I said. This is manipulation. This is using me. My father looked at the phone. He looked at the timestamp. He looked at me. You're a Sterling, he grunted. You don't air dirty laundry. I'm not a Sterling, I said. I raised my left hand. The simple gold band Marcus had made for me caught the light. I'm a Webb. And in the Webb family, we don't treat people like garbage because of their bank account. Victoria stepped forward, her eyes narrowing. You think you're better than us, don't you? Just because you married a dirt farmer and adopted some stray kid. The slap didn't come from me. It came from the silence that followed. Marcus stepped forward. He didn't raise a hand. He just loomed. He was 6'2" of muscle built from hauling hay bales, not pushing pencils. "You will not speak about my daughter," Marcus said. His voice was so low it vibrated in the floor. "And you will not speak to my wife. Ever again." Victoria shrank back. I looked at my mother one last time. She looked small. Without the adoration of the crowd, without her narrative of the perfect family, she looked like a scared, empty old woman. "I don't hate you," I said to her. "I really don't. I pity you. You have all the money in the world, and you're the poorest person I know." "Violet." She reached out a hand. "No," I said. "You wanted me gone. You got your wish. Enjoy your dinner. I hope the table is big enough for your egos." I turned around. "Let's go home, Marcus." We walked to the elevator. The doors opened. We stepped inside. As the doors closed, I saw them standing there. Frozen. A tableau of misery in designer clothes. The doors shut. The metal clanged. And just like that, they were gone. The silence in the car on the way back to the farm wasn't empty. It was full. It was the kind of silence you feel after a thunderstorm breaks the heat of a long, suffocating summer. The air was clear. The pressure was gone. Lily fell asleep in the back seat, her head resting against the window, her hand still clutching the program from the ceremony. Marcus drove with one hand on the wheel, his other hand holding mine on the center console. We didn't need to speak. The grip of his hand said everything. "I saw you. I've got you. It's over." But of course, in the digital age, nothing is ever truly over. It just changes form. By the time we pulled into our gravel driveway, the clip of my speech had already started circulating. Rachel texted me a link with a simple caption, "You broke the internet, Vi." I didn't look at it that night. I turned off my phone, made grilled cheese sandwiches, and watched a cartoon with Lily. For the first time in 4 years, I didn't feel the phantom weight of my mother's judgment hovering over my shoulder. I didn't wonder what she would think of my dinner, my house, or my life. I knew what she thought, and I knew that it didn't matter. The fallout for the Sterling family didn't happen all at once. It was a slow, agonizing crumble, like a statue developing hairline cracks before the face falls off. Rachel became my reluctant war correspondent over the next 6 months. The first domino to fall was Victoria. My sister, the woman who lived for validation, had made the mistake of underestimating the internet. People are smart. They found her Instagram profile within hours of the broadcast. They found the photos of her perfect life. And they found the comments section. Thousands of strangers flooded her posts. They weren't just trolling, they were asking real questions. Is this the red Valentino you wore to stage a fake reconciliation? Did you really send a heart emoji when your mom disowned your sister? I was going to book a consultation, but I don't trust a surgeon who treats her own blood like that. It was brutal. It was relentless. Victoria tried to delete the comments, but for every one she deleted, 3 more appeared. 2 days after the ceremony, her account, her precious portfolio of luxury and status, disappeared. User not found. Rachel told me later that Victoria had a meltdown in her office. She blamed me, of course. She screamed that I had ruined her brand. But deep down, I think she knew. You can't build a beautiful face on an ugly soul and expect people not to notice eventually. Then came Bradley. The corporate world is quieter about its punishments, but they are just as severe. Bradley's law firm didn't fire him, that would be too messy. But suddenly, he wasn't the face of their charity initiatives anymore. He was removed from the Partners in the Community page on their website. His clients, people who valued discretion and reputation above all else, started to drift away. No one wants a lawyer whose family drama is trending on Twitter. The sterling name, which he had fought so hard to protect, had become a liability. He had tried to use my success as a PR move, and it had backfired into a PR disaster. And finally, my mother. Margaret. The country club is a vicious ecosystem. It thrives on gossip, but it punishes scandal. For years my mother had held court there, judging everyone else's children, bragging about her doctor and her lawyer, and painting me as the saint in Africa. When the truth came out, she didn't just lose face. She lost her audience. Rachel told me the story of what happened the first time Mom went back to the club after the ceremony. She walked into the dining room, head high, wearing her armor of Chanel and defiance. She walked to her usual table by the window. And nobody sat with her. The ladies she had lunched with for 20 years suddenly found the patterns on the tablecloth very interesting. Mrs. Higgins, the woman Mom had lied to about my mission work, reportedly stood up, walked past my mother's table, and said loud enough for the room to hear, "My son is a plumber, Margaret. And I am prouder of him than you will ever be of anything." My mother resigned from the social committee the next week. She cited health reasons. But everyone knew the truth. She had been exiled from the only kingdom she ever cared about. While their world was shrinking, mine was expanding. The job of superintendent was hard. Harder than I imagined. I was dealing with budget cuts, bus driver shortages, and parents who screamed at school board meetings. But I loved it. I loved it because I wasn't doing it to prove anything to anyone. I was doing it because I believed in it. I visited schools every week. I sat in kindergarten classrooms and read books. I shook hands with bus drivers. I made sure every single employee in the district knew that they weren't lowly. And at home, the farm was thriving. That autumn was our best harvest yet. Marcus and I spent our weekends in the orchard picking apples. The air was crisp, smelling of wood smoke and decaying leaves. One Saturday in late October, about 6 months after the ceremony, I was up on a ladder, reaching for a cluster of Fuji apples. The sun was setting, casting a golden light over the hills. Marcus was on the ground, loading crates onto the truck. Lily was running between the rows with the dog, her laughter echoing in the valley. I paused and looked at my hands. They were sticky with apple juice. My fingernails were short. I had dirt on my jeans. I thought about the Valentino dress. I thought about the pristine white carpets in my parents' house where you were afraid to step. I took a bite of an apple. It was sweet, tart, and real. "You okay up there?" Marcus called out, shielding his eyes from the sun. "I'm perfect," I shouted back. And I meant it. But life isn't a fairy tale where the villains just vanish into smoke. They linger. The letter arrived in November. It came in a thick, cream-colored envelope. I recognized the stationery immediately. It was the expensive Crane and Company paper my mother had used for thank you notes my entire life. There was no return address, but the handwriting was unmistakable. Elegant, looped cursive that had been drilled into her at finishing school in the 1970s. I found it in the mailbox at the end of the driveway. I stood there in the cold wind, holding it. My first instinct was to tear it up. To throw it in the ditch and let the rain dissolve the ink. But curiosity is a heavy thing. I took it inside. I sat at the kitchen table, the same place where I had graded papers 4 years ago, the same place where I had received the text message that ended my first life. Marcus sat across from me. He didn't speak. He just slid a letter opener across the wood. I opened it. 2 pages. Front and back. "Violet," it began. Not dearest, not darling. Just Violet. I have written this letter a dozen times. I have thrown them all away because none of them sounded right. I realized that every time I tried to write to you, I was trying to explain myself. I was trying to justify why I did what I did. I wanted to tell you about the pressure I felt, about how your father expects perfection, about how the world judges women like me. I scoffed. Still making excuses. But then the tone changed. But the truth is simpler and uglier. I was jealous of you. I stopped reading. I looked at Marcus. She says she was jealous. Keep reading, he said. You have to understand, Violet. I have spent my entire life performing. I performed for my parents. I performed for your father. I performed for the club. Everything I have is based on what people think of me. If they stop clapping, I stop existing. When you walked away from medical school, I was furious. But when I watched you over the years, driving that old car, wearing those simple clothes, and looking happy, it terrified me. You didn't need the applause. You didn't need the money. You didn't need me. Your brother and sister, they need the money. They need the approval. That gives me power. But you? You were free. And I hated you for it because I have never been free a day in my life. I am not asking for forgiveness. I saw your face on that stage. I saw a woman I don't know, a woman I tried to erase because she made me feel small. I know I cannot fix this. I know I lost the right to be your mother years ago. But I wanted you to know that you were right. You are successful. You are the most successful child I have, because you are the only one who doesn't need to pretend. Goodbye, Violet. Margaret. I put the letter down. My hands were trembling, but not from anger. It was the most honest thing she had ever said. It was tragic. It was a confession from a woman who had built a cage of gold bars and locked herself inside, then hated her daughter for learning how to fly. What does it say? Marcus asked gently. It says she's sorry, I said. In her own way. It says she knows she lost. Are you going to reply? I looked at the handwritten words. I thought about the lonely woman sitting in that big, empty house, surrounded by expensive furniture, and a husband who looked at her like an asset rather than a wife. I thought about the silence of her phone now that the club ladies had moved on. A part of me, the little girl who just wanted her mommy to love her, wanted to call. Wanted to say, I forgive you, let's start over. But then I looked at the wall. Hanging there was a calendar. Next week was Thanksgiving. If I called, what would happen? Would we go back to the politeness? Would I eventually find myself back at the table, walking on eggshells, trying not to offend her fragility? Forgiveness doesn't mean access. You can forgive someone for cutting you, but you don't hand them the knife again. No, I said. I folded the letter and put it back in the envelope. I'm not going to reply. Are you sure? I'm sure. She doesn't need a daughter right now. She needs to sit with herself. And I need to live my life. I walked over to the fireplace. For a second, I thought about burning it. But I didn't. I put it in the drawer where we kept the instruction manuals and takeout menus. It wasn't a weapon anymore. It was just a piece of paper. An artifact from a past civilization that had crumbled. Come on, I said to Marcus. Lily wants to learn how to make apple crisp. I need you to peel. He smiled, that slow, warm smile that grounded me. Yes, ma'am, Superintendent. It has been a year since the ceremony. Things have settled into a rhythm. The scandal has faded from the headlines, replaced by the next viral sensation. People in town still stop me to say congratulations, but now they talk about the new reading initiative or the bus schedules, not my family drama. I am just Violet again. Bradley divorced his wife, or she divorced him. I heard different versions from Rachel. Apparently, when the money gets tight and the reputation takes a hit, the love evaporates pretty quickly. Victoria moved to a different practice in D.C., trying to start over where no one knows about the red Valentino dress. And me? I am sitting under the oak tree on the farm. It's a Saturday afternoon. The air is warm, smelling of clover and damp earth. I have a box of old things I brought from my apartment years ago. I'm sorting through them, deciding what to keep and what to toss. I find my old grade book from my first year of teaching. I find the acceptance letter from UVA Medical School. I toss that one in the recycling bin without a second thought. And then, I find it. A piece of construction paper, yellowing slightly at the edges. It's a drawing Lily made for me the week I officially adopted her. It was before the superintendent job, before the governor, before the viral fame. It's done in crayon. There are 3 stick figures standing under a yellow sun that has a smiley face. The figure on the left is tall and has a beard, that's Marcus. The figure in the middle is small with curly hair, that's Lily. And the figure on the right has long brown hair and is holding a book. That's me. Underneath, in wobbly, kindergarten letters, she wrote, "My family." I run my finger over the wax crayon. For 30 years, I thought family meant a shared last name. I thought it meant inheritance, bloodlines, and obligations. I thought it meant sitting at a table where you weren't wanted because you were too afraid to leave. I thought wealth was measured in Ferraris and country club memberships. I look up from the drawing. Marcus is over by the barn, teaching Lily how to check the oil in the tractor. They are both covered in grease. Lily is laughing, her head thrown back, pure unadulterated joy. Marcus is looking at her with so much pride it almost radiates off him. That is wealth. I am not the lowly teacher my mother tried to erase. I am a woman who builds things. I build minds in the classroom. I built a home on this farm. And I built a family out of love, truth, and showing up. My mother was right about one thing in her text message. She said, I no longer see her as my daughter. She stopped seeing me. But in doing so, she forced me to finally see myself. I stand up, brushing the grass off my jeans. I pick up the drawing. I'm going to frame it. I'm going to hang it in my office at the Department of Education, right next to the award from the governor. Because one is a recognition of what I do. The other is a recognition of who I am. Hey! I call out to them. Who wants ice cream? 2 heads turn toward me instantly. 2 smiles that light up my world. Me. Lily screams. I'm in, Marcus yells. I walk toward them, across the grass that we own, under the sky that is free. I am Violet Webb. And I am exactly where I belong. I want to leave you with something I learned the hard way. It took me 3 decades to understand this, but I hope you can learn it in the next few minutes. My mother's rejection was painful, yes. But her rejection was never about my value, it was about her insecurity. When people try to make you feel small, it is usually because they are suffocating inside their own expectations. You have the right to close the door. Boundaries are not walls you build to block out love, they are gates you build to protect your peace. You get to decide who walks through that gate. And just because someone shares your DNA does not mean they have a VIP pass to disrespect you. True success isn't about the title on your business card or the car in your driveway. It's about going to sleep at night with a clear conscience. It's about being loved for who you are, not what you can provide. I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to walk away from someone you love to save yourself? What is the one lesson this story sparked in you? Tell me that we are on the same page. Thank you for listening to my story. I'm Violet and I'll see you in the comments.